I have no problem with the medical use of cannabis, just as I have no problem with the medical use of opiates. If a drug is needed for a valid medicinal purpose, though, and is being administered safely, there should be no question of its legality. And if a drug that's proven to be safe abroad is needed here, it should be available. I agree that the regulation of medicines is a thicket of complexity, bureaucracy, and corporate and institutional self-interest. My basic contention is that something that's been found to be safe in a reliable jurisdiction shouldn't need to be tested again here.
Marijuana is a gateway drug. The risk of graduating to ice or to heroin from extended marijuana use is real and documented. This action by the Greens risks the health of Australians. It should be rejected and they should withdraw it, and we will oppose it.
Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? Because it make you rebel. Against what?
Excuse me while I light my splay. Oh God, I got to take a leave from reality. I just can't dream. As a while staying with this.
Hello, today is the 22nd of October 2018 and you're listening to the Australian Cannabis Review. Well, thanks for joining me again. A lot to talk about this week. The huge news is, and the reason why I didn't get to this podcast a bit earlier was because I just wanted to hear and see the news unfold over the week, and Canada officially has legalized recreational cannabis. Woo! I'm going to say I'm fucking stoked for this. There's not too many swear words on this podcast, but that is a great move. It is the second country in the world to fully legalize recreational cannabis, following Uruguay back in 2013. And I've got to make a little shout out to Uruguay. They are the first country that legalized cannabis in the world for recreational purposes. And a big kudos has to go to their president, Jose Mujica. And anyone interested in just politics in general and just great leaders all around, especially if you follow the political situation in Australia where we're lacking some genuine leadership in sight. Jose Mujica is a man that really should be looked at. So a little side plug there. If you've got any time, I would research that guy. But back to the news at hand. With Canada legalizing recreational cannabis, people have been lining up. They've been trying to get their bud. There's many different ways that they can access it. The laws that are surrounding it is, you can be 18 years or 19 years old, depending on the territory that you're in. All these laws align with the age that you can legally purchase alcohol, so it's pretty much all the same. Now, over the last few years in Canada, it's been pretty easy to access cannabis as well. Well, I don't mean Canada, I would say BC, so the state of British Columbia, or the province of British Columbia, I should say more accurately. And I was there in 2016, and just as some anecdotal storytelling on my behalf, when I was in Vancouver, so that's the capital of BC, they have many dispensaries, and you could go into them with a doctor's certificate and legally buy cannabis, no problem. But there was one little town that did catch my eye, and that was a town called Victoria. Now, Victoria is situated on Vancouver Island, and to get there, it's only about, I think, an hour and a half, 2-hour ferry trip from Vancouver, if memory serves me correctly. Not too long at all. And once you get into Victoria, you can get off the boat there, and you can go to a dispensary. And as of 2016, there were actually more dispensaries than there were bottle shops in Victoria. So that just goes to show how kind of popular cannabis was just for recreational purposes there at that time. And what happened was that the mayor of Victoria actually sent out a directive to all police officers just to say, leave these people alone. Let them, do what they want. You guys focus on the real crime. And, we went to a dispensary in Victoria and, we bought some bud, no questions asked, just like we were buying liquor. So in some small parts, at least in this little one place that I went to, that was something that could be done. And it's great. So it's kind of been normalized for some people there already. But it's going to have a huge impact, and we're not sure kind of how it's going to turn out. I've been reading that there is going to be a bit of a shortage in supply. This is what they say, at least in the first year. People will be able to buy cannabis from dispensaries or licensed places, but they're thinking there could be a shortfall, at least for the first 12 months. So we'll see how that goes, but people can also, grow cannabis at home if they like. So exciting news there. Also, I think this is a bit old in years, but I'll just throw it in there as well. The United Kingdom, they've also passed a bill where they've legalized medicinal cannabis. So another country ticked off the box going forward in this space. Wish Australia was kind of more in this space, but we are in medicinal cannabis, but I do feel we could be a little bit more ahead of the bell curve, especially figuring our country and the climate we have. It's ideal. Those Canadians, they're going to have to grow indoors. They're setting up huge warehouse complexes pretty much to be able to grow indoors. So all they're going to do is just bring out some amazing indoor hydroponic growing technologies that are going to be passed down to people. So that's a great thing for them, I suppose. However, I believe it's a move that Australia should make, legalising cannabis. The war on drugs, that hasn't worked. Prohibition has never really successfully worked in any way. Now, the truth is, the Canadian economy is going to benefit a lot from the sale of cannabis. Now, there's still going to be a black market out there, but it's far better to have something that's controlled by government than to have a total ban on it. That's definitely true. It's going to be much easier on police to use their resources to crack down on a smaller black market than it is for, say, a huge black market. Because you're never going to cut out a black market. That's totally true. So that's enough on that topic. We'll see how that goes. Moving on, though, to the Australian Stock Exchange and the Australian medicinal cannabis sector stocks. It's been a pretty interesting week due to the legalisation of recreational cannabis in Canada. There's a few stocks that have jumped pretty highly during the week. Now, first of all, there was MXC, who had an announcement back in 27th of September, where they struck a deal with Canna Global. So there was a transaction for about $1 million up front, and then more funds to proceed. They're going through the definitive agreements at the moment. MXC stocks, hit a high of about 8.1 cents. So back when they were trading a few weeks ago, they're around the 5.5 cent mark. So those shares have gone up at a high about 50%. They're now sitting at around this high 6 mark at the moment. So high news for them. Now, there's been a few small, we'll call them the really small cap stocks in the medicinal cannabis space that have really noticed a huge incline in their share price this week. So first of all, on Monday, so that was the 15th of October, Essence Labs, they completed a capital raising of $3.15 million, and their share price closed on Monday at 3.7 cents per share. On Thursday, their shares hit 10 cents per share, and their volume was just gearing up higher and higher. In one day's trading, their share price went up. It wasn't even in the whole day. It was just only in a couple of hours of trading until they asked for a trading halt during the day. And their share price was at like 6.57 cents. Now, the ASX sent a volume or a price and volume query, and there was an explanation to the market. eSense didn't really have a response to the ASX. They pretty much just said, it could be what's happening in Canada. So the ASX was pretty happy with that. But in the trading world, there's a term called a pump and dump. So this is where a stock share price goes up pretty dramatically over a very short period of time, and then that price tends to fall pretty quickly. And what we've seen is that by Friday, their share price had fell again pretty significantly to about 7 cents per share. I think in one day, their share price fell about 30% or something like that. And actually, the share price even hit a high of 16 cents per share during at one point. So, there could have been some lucky traders out there that went from 3.5 cents to selling at the peak at 16 cents. That's just huge. But even if, you sold out at 7 cents per share at the end of the week, it's still a 100% gain over a week's time. So that's a pretty good, quick profit right there. Another company who didn't have much news coming out of them is a company called Stem Cell United. They're actually more based in Singapore, but over the week their volume kind of rose pretty steadily, and so was their price, and they had a 10% rise, a 20% rise, a 30% rise in their share price, and they went from a low of 2.2 cents per share to 3.7 within the week as well. Now, no news came out of the company, and another explanation was it could just be a pump up from cannabis being made legal in Canada again. So another really small stock that had its share price go up quite significantly. It was actually when they first announced that they were trading, also not trading, but dealing with medicinal cannabis stocks, something really crazy happened where their share price went from like 1 cent to $1 or something like that. I really got to check my information, but there was some kind of huge jump in their stock price, and like 1,800% in like a day, which is unheard of on the Australian Stock Exchange. Now, this is the kind of thing with these small cap stocks. They're quite volatile. These things can happen for unknown reasons as well. I really do have to put a disclaimer out there that you shouldn't really be banking on it. I think the people that get in on these stocks, they're either on the inside and they know something, or you're going to be super fortunate for that to happen to you. Because, what are the odds of you picking that? It's kind of like winning the lottery in some ways. And another stock that's had something similar happen to them as well is AEB. Now, their share price rose in a day 42%. That was on last Thursday, the 18th of October. Their share price went from 1.2 cents to 1.7 cents per share, hitting a high during the day at 2.2 cents per share. The ASX was interested about this as well. They wanted to know what's going on. They didn't really say there was any reason. They're not aware why their share price would have such a large movement. Potential cause could be is that their manager and chairman, Malcolm Jones, is on an overseas trip at the moment promoting the company. So maybe there's some international investors out there who've been buying into the company. Who knows? But the ASX, once again, seems satisfied with the response to their query. I believe it's probably just another pump up. In 1 week, 3 very small capped medicinal cannabis stocks have had a huge jump in share price, going, from 50 to a rise of 350% or something like that. that's quite speculative. So if you're investing in stocks, be aware. If you're already investing in these stocks, I mean, good luck to you. The companies that I've mentioned as well, they are pretty small. Like I'll just mention how much their shares are worth. Sometimes, 1 cent to 10 cent range. They've got relatively very small market caps of, $1 million to $10 million. So, and even the money that's coming in for some of the deals that they've got is not actually anything quite significant that would warrant a rise like that. So there was just some concern, and don't be jumping into these stocks unless you really do your research. And from my point of view, even though they are in the medicinal cannabis space, the reason why there's so much volatility, mainly at this point in time, or at least why share prices rise so much, is because of news around legislation and stuff like that. Nothing to do with what the company is actually doing. If you look at the financial reports of these companies, which I would highly advise people to do, 100% look at their quarterly reports, their annual reports, look at some of their investor presentations and what they're looking to do. I mean, in some of those reports, the money that they're talking about, that the deals that they're getting from certain transactions with companies that they're dealing with, it's very small amounts, and it doesn't justify the huge raise in their prices. So you be on your toes about them. I personally don't invest in any of those companies that I mentioned before. I have invested in MXC before. I did have a little gain in that. But I believe that, their share price, I think when I was looking at them, it was around the 3 cent mark. So now that they've doubled in 2 years, so if I had have kept them for that long, I would have made some more money off them, should I say. I think I sold out around the 4 cent range, when they were up about 33% or something like that. Because I only held that stock for a year, and I thought, over a year's time, a 33% gain in a stock is also quite a nice return on investment. I mean, we're not looking to get rich overnight here with stocks. That's really more of the sphere of gamblers and speculators. And when it comes to my investments, it's more a long-term focus and trying to get really good returns over a long period of time. Some other news that's come out is Althea. So they're the newest medicinal cannabis sector stock. They only listed last month, but they've mentioned that they've got 100 patients who've been approved for medicinal cannabis since May 2008. They've had 42 doctors prescribe Althea products throughout Australia, and there's been 100% approval rate from the TGA for all those applications. So another new company making some headway. Their share price sits right now, as of the 22nd of October, about 1 or 2% down from their high close price, which was 50 cents when they first opened, which was towards the end of October. So they've only been trading for about a month now. It's definitely a company to look at. I mean, they've got investment from Apfria, which is, one of the biggest cannabis companies out there. So they're definitely a stock to look at. And out of all those ones that I've mentioned before, I think Apfria is probably the most standout. But there is also probably about another 15 medicinal cannabis stocks out there that you can invest in on the ASX. And I would really recommend having a further look into them and seeing if they're the right stock for you potentially. Also, I've got to mention with eSense, their share price was much higher early on in the year, and they had a lot of issues with their directors and some infighting within the company, and their share price fell all the way down to that kind of 2 cent mark, and now they've kind of had a little bounce back. But we'll see if that's going to be sustained over a longer period of time. And as we're getting to the last week and a bit of the reporting season, most of these companies will be releasing their quarterlies for Q3. and there'll be a lot more information from those companies coming out. You can look on Cannabis on the ASX.com. That's a website that's run through us, and we've got daily updates on medicinal cannabis stocks, plus articles written as well. And I guess on the 31st of October there'll be an article out with all the results there from all our medicinal cannabis stocks on the ASX. So that's an interesting space to watch, and we'll inform you in the podcast in a little while's time as well. Because we didn't have a show for about a week and a bit, I want to talk about a few other stories that we've got in the pipeline. So there'll be a lot less talk about stocks. So if you're not interested in that stuff, there's going to be something there for you. And then the following week we'll have an episode about the quarterly reports, and I'll give a brief overview of all the stocks that are on the ASX, just so people have a bit better idea of what they're actually about, because I kind of mentioned some names here and there, but I really want to go into more detailed information about all that. Now, finishing up for today, thanks for listening. If you've got any questions, please send them through to the Australian Cannabis Review at gmail.com. Once again, today is Monday, the 27th of October 2018. I've been Daniel, and you've been listening to the Australian Cannabis Review podcast.
Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? Because it make you rebel. Against what?